What's the thought now about the future of women in Afghanistan today?
Well, I mean, let's be under no illusion. Afghanistan is one of the worst countries to live in the world if you are a woman. There have been major inroads over the course of particularly the last decade, but over the course of the last 20 years. But nonetheless, it still is one of the worst countries to live in if you are a woman, and that is only now set to get worse. What's incredibly poignant for me, having worked really closely with women and girls almost a decade ago, is I heard not only firsthand from them the horrific stories of living under a Taliban regime, but I also saw the hope that they spoke with regarding the future, and in particular the future of their daughters, the hope that life would be more normal, that their girls and the future women of the country would be able to aspire to going to school, to going on to get a university degree, and we've seen some of those things happening. I think the fear for everybody now is that all of those things are going to be ripped away.
And Hattie, we're talking about enormous numbers. I know sometimes people think, well, 20 years, what could change in 20 years? Look at the demographics.
Yeah.
In 20 years, Afghanistan's population has nearly doubled.
Yeah.
So I think the median age is something like 18. So when you say we've sent millions of girls to school, in the context of that doubling of population, that is changing the whole nature of a society really quickly, in a way actually we struggle to understand.
Correct, that's absolutely right. I think the numbers from 20 years ago are absolutely shocking. I think it was something like less than 1,000 girls across the entire country were in secondary school.
Wow.
I mean, it is, as you say, the inroads have been unbelievable in some ways. But let's make no bones about it, Afghanistan has still been a really brutal and horrifying place to live, including over the last decade, if you're a woman.
Hattie, did you see it? I know we make a lot of, there's 1,000 women working in the media, but most of them will be in Kabul. Most of them will be in the big cities. I just wonder, in the rural hinterland, where the TV cameras tend not to roam, how much actually life changed for women after 2001?
This is a really important point, and I think it's really pertinent now where we're getting Taliban spokesmen speaking from Kabul, who often sound relatively sanguine, and you think, it sounds like a reasonable point that's being made. But as you say, that is not necessarily representative of what's happening out in the provinces, and in Helmand in particular, it has remained an incredibly austere and very limiting place for women to live and operate. But I think we're going to continue to see that. I mean, ultimately, as we've said, you've got spokesmen providing statements from Kabul, but let's not forget the Taliban can't run a centrally functioning government the way you would expect it in a democratic society. So in the UK, for example, governments centrally govern, and then out in the localities, there is still central command and control. That doesn't happen in Afghanistan. It's effectively about what the local warlord wants to do. And it's very, very difficult to coordinate that. So regardless of the messages that we've seen already, as you said, on the ground, we're seeing evidence that quite the opposite is actually what's going to take place.